Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore Pluto's return to Aquarius for the third time on the 19th of November. It's going to be there through to 2043 when it makes its way into Pisces briefly before returning to Aquarius and then returning back to Pisces in 2044. But we had 11 weeks in 2023 from the end of March, and then from the 21st of January, ironically Pluto's birthday, this year through to the 2nd of September, Pluto made its second visit before inverting in its retrograde, which began in May, into Capricorn for one final time. As Pluto emerges from Capricorn, what does it tell us? Because as it enters Aquarius, that welcoming committee of all the other planetary players creates a perfect moment, that natal chart. And that natal chart is going to be so influential through to 2043. Also, I'm going to share with you about Pluto's progress in 2025, how many degrees it extends to before its retrograde, which is annual and 5 months. But Pluto's going to be forging two incredibly powerful events. On the 7th of July, we have a golden triangle, but on the 7th of August, we have a grand air trine. It's astonishingly powerful. I'm going to also share with you what you can expect in terms of what year you were born. So where was Pluto when you were born? I'm going to share with you all the key dates of those Pluto journeys. There may be some watchers that did experience Pluto in Cancer, many with Leo, obviously with Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, more recently Capricorn, and then of course now we have the Aquarius Pluto babies essentially. I'm also then going to share with you what you can expect in terms of your ascendant or sun over these coming years, but particularly in 2025. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. If you're new to my channel, please help it thrive and click that sub button, but also the bell notification symbol. If you're a returning visitor, as always, I truly appreciate all your views and interactions. I'm going to just share with you, I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. If you're a patron, you can download my free Pluto factoid by clicking on the link below too. So the last time that Pluto was in Aquarius was in 1798, which is 226 years ago. Pluto in Aquarius is going to create sweeping changes and reforms. And we could find ourselves becoming more passionate about the groups or societies and organisations that we're affiliated to. We are going to see a continuing breakthrough in the type of sciences and technology that we're going to experience for good or otherwise. Now, the types of people that we align to or network with can have a transformative impact upon us individually. We can align ourselves with reforming groups. We are definitely going to see a degree of evolution, but definitely some revolution. If that sounds alarming, once I share with you the event chart, it will make more sense. But let's just think about Pluto characteristics, because Pluto does get a little bit of a bad celestial press. We all know about the leverage, the power, the obsession, the secrecy, the underworld, how things can end, sometimes be taken away from us. But we don't always hear quite so much about how it can be very truth-seeking, very transformational. It can be about beginnings, and those beginnings can be very good. It also gives us the opportunity to understand things by analysing things in a deeper and more penetrative way. If we're interested in psychology, that can grow in the sign of Aquarius, I feel, but also it can tease out what's hidden. And sometimes what's hidden can be to do with the power that's been held over us. So very much to do with the subconscious. But of course, Pluto can be about ruthlessness. It can be about control, for sure. It can be about domination. It can be about jealousy. And some of those other adjectives I used before. Aquarius does have a commonality with the sign of Capricorn because its traditional ruler is Saturn. Uranus is a relatively recent discovery. It's co-regent, it's an air sign, and in terms of that Saturnian energy, it's very much to do with continuity because it's a fixed sign. So there is a preference for a degree of regularity and adherence to certain patterns of behaviour. But that Uranus energy does create a kind of tension between the steady as you go Saturn and the much more radical energies of Uranus. So taken in the whole, if we think about the popular view of Aquarius, it's often that Aquarius people are rather zany, unpredictable, perhaps even a little bit flaky in some ways. But in actual fact, I feel Aquarius energy is quite complex. On one hand, it wants to stick. On the other hand, it wants to twist. The Uranus energy is much more progressive, innovative, open. Can obviously be to do with friendships, the community, how we interact socially. It can be about society itself. But it can, of course, with that Uranian energy, be very rebellious. It needs space. And the sign of Aquarius can be cool and it can be detached. And that's where Pluto could be a challenge at times. And one of the things I'd like to push back against is this view that Pluto in Capricorn was all bad and Pluto in Aquarius is all going to be great. That just simply isn't the case, because if we think about Saturn, if we really work and persist, rewards that effort and commitment. So the sign of Capricorn, if we use its energy in the right way, because every sign and every planet has an upside and a more challenging dimension. So the sign of Capricorn can be about wisdom, experience, knowledge, that hard work and application that I mentioned before. But of course, what we have seen since 2008 with Pluto going through Capricorn is the obsession with profit has had a big impact on the more society side of life. So things have broken down to a degree. And with the impact of the internet, that's created a lot more individual fiefdoms, if you like. We each have an opportunity to influence the dialogue that goes on, the narrative that goes on between us. Whereas in traditional times, Capricorn very much about culmination in the physical sense, maybe those big organizations, those big institutions did have perhaps too much power. But there are some big organizations that can be for the good. It's just that the obsession of Pluto through Capricorn has seen, I feel, an unrelenting desire for improvement in terms of the material plane. And maybe we've forgotten more about how that feels for those people who perhaps have it a bit differently to us. And that has created a sense of exclusion with some people. Some people don't feel that they're part of the Capricornian success story. And therefore, because the sign of Aquarius is very much about community and the collective, people are expressing their discontent in a much more potent and powerful way. But of course, Aquarius is an air sign, so intrinsically it is about communication. And because of the way we connect these days through this amazing technology that's so available to us all, that has been groundbreaking. It's been life-changing. It gives us so much instant access to knowledge that in the past we may have had to go to a public library in order to access. So that has been very liberating. but it's how we use that knowledge and how we use the right to express an opinion that really has become so contentious. And the event charts are really feeding into that narrative. So I feel that thinking that everything in Aquarius is going to be, in terms of Pluto, some kind of panacea for the worst of the Capricornian energy is just not the case. We are going to see some continuity, some linkage between the Saturnian energy of Aquarius and the Saturnian energy of Capricorn. And also, you know, there are some big institutions that are now being scrutinized, particularly to do with the digital sphere. So I can't name names, but we are seeing some big antitrust cases by governments against the power of certain players, and you'll be able to work out who I mean. So it's important to understand that there could be some pushback that can be very valuable to us all. But somehow or another, all the technology that's coming in could be great for medicine, for example, if technology, AI, robotics, automation can see into us in a more accurate and speedier way, could transform things radically. But then when it comes to extending life in a longer term way, who is going to have access to the replacement of organs that could see people live for many hundreds of years? That then becomes a much darker arena for me, because the power undeniably will go to people with enormous wealth. And that's what we're also seeing now. People with enormous wealth and influence are starting to be more powerful than governments very often. And so we can think, for example, that governments might be scrutinising our public information and wanting to know more about us. As far as I'm concerned, the proverbial cat was out the bag many moons ago. So we need to be realistic about that. But if you are someone who has Pluto in Cancer, and you would be older, that would have concluded you would have been born before 1939. If you got Pluto in Leo, you were born between 37, because obviously Pluto switched into Leo, then back into the sign of Cancer, from 37 to 58. Pluto in Virgo, which I have, from 56 to 72. Pluto in Libra, 71 to 84. Scorpio, 83 to 95. Sagittarius, 95 to 2008. And Pluto in Capricorn from 2008 through to now. And I'm going to share with you what I feel that Pluto will represent. So for the Cancer people, there is an inevitable understanding of the cycle of life, because that's where your age is, the 8th house. But it also can be to do with things like legacies, inheritances, or the things that you're going to potentially pass on to others. But it also can be a deeper psychological knowledge, and that wisdom that you have can be passed on. If you are someone who has Pluto in the flamboyant Leo, a huge age for social revolution in itself, for you Pluto moves into your 7th house, so it's very much about your interactions with others, but also potentially your boundaries. And then Pluto in Virgo has inevitably given those people a profound interest in welfare, organisation, potentially purity and health. So Pluto moving into Aquarius, the 6th house, really is asking for some big changes to something that was always part of those Pluto and Virgo people. So in a way, it's a challenge for people of my age group to try to adapt to how the landscape is swiftly shifting, but there is an opportunity. Now Pluto in Libra is the 5th house. So honestly, if you've got Pluto or had Pluto in Libra, this is going to be a big relief for you, this switch, because it's much more about showcasing your talents, your creativity, your individual flair, and it can also be very potent in terms of romance. Rather nice. Now, if you do have Pluto in Scorpio, 83 to 95, very much about changing where you live, how you live there, and who you're with, and learning a lot more about the emotional sphere and security and our links, our emotional links, our heritage to people who predated us. And Pluto in Sagittarius 95 to 2008, it's all about the conversation, because the last few years for you has been very much about resources, self-worth, values, money. Pluto in Capricorn, of course, is much more recent people, and for you it's going to be defining the identity that you've had to develop in a time of radical change, and that may have been difficult to make sense of it. So you're going to be much more concerned with foundations, everyday money, trying to work out your value in the process. Now I'm going to share with you at the end of the video what it means for each of the 12 zodiac signs. So on the screen now, I'm showing the solar event chart. I'm showing the solar event chart first because I feel it helps to illustrate the overall zodiac, which we can all relate to. So when Pluto pitches up into Aquarius on the 19th at 8:41 p.m. Universal, there's Pluto just in Aquarius, which is the sign of the collective. It's friendly, it's progressive, it's thinking about the future, it's about our higher values, it's about our friendships, our network, but it's opposed by the very strident energies of Mars. Guess what? These two are the rulers, the co-regents of the sign of Scorpio, which is where the sun is. So there's a Scorpionic echo with this event. You can also see that the sun's position in Scorpio is opposite Uranus. So the sun is in a fixed sign, Pluto is in a fixed sign, Mars is in a fixed sign. Fixed sign can create resistance because fixed doesn't always like change. But Uranus has been an agent provocateur since it pitched in full time into Uranus in March 2019. And remember that seeding chart for 5 months in 2018 had Mars and Uranus in a square when Uranus first moved into Taurus for that initial visit. So that has created quite an impact since then, which shows the importance of natal astrology. We can't just think of Pluto in Aquarius in isolation. It's too simple. So what we have is that fixed energy can resist change, but Uranus is pushing for it. And then the sheer ego of Mars in Leo, because Mars in Leo needs attention, it needs to be individual. I'm not going to do what other people expect me to do. I'm going to do what I need to do for me. That's the basic dialogue. So complexity, there's a lot of desire there, a lot of push for change, but also a lot of resistance to change, but a battle between what we want to do as individuals with what perhaps we should be thinking about doing as a collective, which comes from Pluto. But let's also look at the positions of Mercury and Jupiter. They're both detrimented. So Mercury is in Sagittarius. It spent quite a lot of time in Sagittarius over the last couple of years, opposite Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius. So we've got a mutual non-receptivity, if you like. So both are detrimented. But they're about communication. Now, on the face of it, Mercury opposite Jupiter can be quite an upbeat influence because you can see it's optimistic, hopeful, but it also, in this particular configuration with both in detriment, can see us promising more than we can realistically deliver. But also it can see, I feel, because the sign of Sagittarius does rule publishing, and because they're in opposition, Jupiter in Gemini can definitely be very much invested in promoting a particular ideology, so dogma, and you know, a might is right approach. And Mercury in Sagittarius can rush the conversation and be a little bit disinclined to just pause and consider things more carefully. So we are going to see an enormous amount of battling between different viewpoints right through to 2043, but not viewpoints that are based on facts, unfortunately. We are definitely living in a post-truth arena where people are talking into what people want to hear. The information that's being shared is very manipulative. And we're all subject to this. You know, even if you think you're very aware of this and examining and scrutinizing details very carefully, we're all there's part of all of us that wants to read and watch things that conform to our particular worldview. So we all have to watch that, but we all have to watch how someone can seize power and have control. So the new world that's developing with Pluto in Aquarius can see those progressions. We may see, for example, shields that help to keep the sun's rays out to lower global warming, if that's what you believe in. I know some people don't, they just think it's natural cycles, but we will see that kind of technology come in, and it will be very positive. But we're also going to see a lot of other technology come in warfare, and we are seeing it in Ukraine, where the pace of development through robotics is absolutely incredible, and of course AI. I remember a big dust up between two very experienced military commentators, both highly educated, and one was saying the tank was essentially at the end of its life force. The other person was outraged about this at the start of the Ukrainian war, but actually the first person was right. And we've seen how drone use, for example, has just accelerated things. And then we've got, you know, these robotics that are incredible. They've been obviously being developed for a long time, but the pace of development is fantastically strong. So you're going to get very autocratic states that want to develop basically soldiers that aren't humans. We are going to see that kind of stuff. We've got other people that are really invested in breaking out of our world and breaking into other planets in our solar system, seeing that there will be resources that we can get and money to be made, or they just love the whole adventure of the situation. When we have an ocean that's full of poisons that we need to clean up, where are our priorities? So those are some of the things that Pluto in Aquarius can give us opportunities, but definitely threats. But this event chart, based on the solar zodiac perspective, that's how I see it. But what about the natal perspective? Well, here Pluto's in house 6. House 6, work, obligations, responsibilities, life organisation, health, which I mentioned. Pluto in Aquarius can have some benefits, but it's opposite Mars. But look at what is alongside Mars. The ascendant in Leo at 3 degrees. So Mars is on that first house cusp. It's the most dominant influence in this entire chart because it's the closest to an angle. It's at 4 degrees and 20. The first house cusp, 3 degrees 31. Now Pluto is pretty close, but it's 3 degrees and 31 away from the cusp. So in any chart, the planet that's closest to a cusp, the angle, is going to be most dominant. So Mars can be about ego gratification, particularly in the sign of Leo. So we're going to see these very charismatic people come into the fore who want to dominate the news cycle with their particular views. But that holds some real potential dangers, I feel. What are the mitigating factors? Well, we could argue in a way that the Sun's link to Pluto through the sextile can be very helpful. So we can express our creativity through the deep resources within us, through Scorpio in house 5. But the way we actually work with those energies, Pluto in 6, is more enlightened, so more efficient. So that points to us all working less hours. But I have a particular view that I feel that work is good for us. Now, a lot of people write on my channel, you're a very hard-working person, Patrick. And some people might say you work too hard. That's fair enough. But I feel that work gives us all a sense of purpose, and it's a lot to do with our identity. It's not for everyone. Some people are much more invested in the creative arts, and their passion is for making or inventing things or visualizing things through stories or film, and that's wonderful, but you still need that graft and application to make those things come to pass. So Pluto in the 6th house suggests that smaller details are going to be important when it comes to that self-expression. The Sun's also in a delicious angle to Neptune. Neptune in 9 at home in Pisces. Obviously, because of the retrograde, it's inverted back from the anaretic degree. But there's a real opportunity there to reimagine our spiritual identity and where we're heading. So those are really lovely. But you can see that Uranus is in 11, very Aquarius, and therefore very rebellious. So again, that tension between doing what we want to do for ourselves, which in some ways is Aquarius, but Aquarius energy encourages the individual, but also the individual who can work as part of a collaboration. So if you like, a worker cooperative approach. Whereas Mars in Leo on that first house, particularly as it is closest to that cusp, it is, I want to get my way, and it's going to be very willful. What about Mercury and Jupiter in that opposition? Well, that's interesting because Mercury's in 5, which is playful, cheeky, perhaps even a bit mischievous, but it is facing off with Jupiter in 11. So in a way, having Jupiter in 11, I quite like that, because that is slowly but surely going to help us to understand the knowledge that we can share with one another as we have newer leaders come through, particularly those people who are born with Pluto in Aquarius. So we're talking in 20 years time, 25 years time, those new leaders will have the vision much more. At the moment, I feel a lot of the leaders are so steeped in the control principle of Capricorn, having power at all costs, particularly those authoritarian regimes, then that's not so good. And they're obviously still going to cling on to that power with dear life. And whether that's going to be by using up vast numbers of their citizens to fight senseless wars in order to maintain their dominance over their society, well, you know, what a sick situation that is. But that's the situation we have at the moment, and it could get worse, unfortunately. So I feel that we just need to be mindful of the other luminary, which I haven't mentioned, which is the moon. So the moon is domiciled. So in the event chart from a zodiac perspective, it's good because it's in house 4, asking us all to be mindful of our emotional health and well-being, security, the home, family, so on. But in this chart, it's in 12, suggesting that our need to grow and evolve in a psychological and spiritual and compassionate way, which Saturn is asking us to really work at through its journey through the sign of Pisces. It's obviously going to be moving on the 23rd of May through to the end of August 25, which I'm going to talk about shortly. But Saturn's asking us to embrace vulnerability. And the moon on this event is saying that we do need to be compassionate to those who are less fortunate. But I think there's such a powerful set of influences there. It seems to me that those people who shout the loudest will be heard the most. And that's not necessarily a good thing. So for us all, ordinary citizens, being able to detach ourselves, very Aquarius, from the news cycle, from even people that we might be drawn to, we need to keep questioning. We need to keep getting beneath the surface, as Pluto can do so marvellously well, to examine what the true meaning is. Now I'm going to share with you about 2025 now. So at the end of March, we have Neptune makes its way into Aries for the first time in 163 years. The reason this is particularly significant is because when it returns to Aries at the start of 2026, because it's going to spend just under 8 months in the sign of Aries. Obviously by that time Neptune will have finished its entire journey, but the sign of Aries is the start of the Zodiac, and that's the critical thing. It's about new beginnings, fresh energy. Neptune can be very much to do with the spiritual dimension. How the wateriness of Neptune works in the fire of Aries remains to be seen. But of course, Neptune will be joined by Saturn on the 23rd of May. Now, Saturn's only going to spend 3 months and 7 days in the sign of Aries. But here we have a contraindication, because Saturn is very much about moderation. It can, of course, be the ruler of time, and the fact that it's starting its initial cycle in Aries, it too will return to Aries in early 26 and start fully the next phase of its journey through the sign of Aries. But the overall journey of Saturn is 29.5 years. So it's a much shorter revolution than Neptune. But the fact they're both in the sign together is really significant. But Saturn constrains, and Aries wants to go, and it wants to go quickly, and it wants to investigate and check exciting new possibilities out. So Saturn can dampen that. So Saturn is in its fall in the sign of Aries. It's not its best location. So again, if you've got astrologers on YouTube telling you that Saturn in Aries is going to be this, that and the other, yes, we do need to think of the cycle, but we also need to think of the karma. And really what we're reaping at the moment with Saturn in Pisces is the karma of the last around about 28.5 years. But then we have on the 7th of July, Uranus moves into Gemini for 4 months. And that creates a golden triangle. A golden triangle is when we have the sextile from Uranus in the wonderful free-spirited air sign of Gemini, linking back to both Saturn and Neptune, but the trine through to Pluto. So that in itself is an enormous opportunity, because the thinking energy, along with the action energy of Aries, so the thinking energy of Uranus and Pluto in the 2 air signs, the action energy, but action energy with the handbrake on, let's be honest about it. But then on the 7th of August, we do get a truly incredibly powerful event, because then Mars moves into Libra. Now, of course, Mars in Libra is also detrimented, but it's linked back to Uranus, and Pluto creates a grand air trine. Think of that, because if we think of essential dignities and how sometimes they're not at their best, such as Mercury in Sagittarius, yes, that can create certain challenges, but they also create opportunities. So Mars in Libra is asking us to find those points of accord, so where we can celebrate the things we have in common rather than being focused on the things that make us different. So if it's in your natal chart, Mars in Libra, the chances are that you might find it a little bit more difficult to assert your individuality. You could be a bit of a people pleaser. Maybe the logic and detachment of Libra could see you a bit more indecisive, but it also can make you brilliant as a counsellor, as someone who works to network different people together, someone who acts as a conduit. So it can have gifts. We mustn't look at any planet, any position, or any zodiac sign only in one side of the equation. Everything has a polarity. So Uranus in Gemini, very, very exciting, highly revved up, much freer spirited. So we are going to see some enormous changes in the way we communicate. We all know the kind of stuff that's coming, that's going to be built into our wrists and the rest of it. We look at the telly, we can turn the telly on by thinking, I want to watch this. It's all coming, it's absolutely obvious. But those kind of things really could take a giant step forwards on the back of that grand air trine. But we could see some other possibilities that are much more productive in terms of the world stage. So we could see much more of a conversation going on. And obviously, if conversations go on, they don't always go in exactly the direction that we as individuals want. But if you don't have dialogue, you cannot have consensus. And if we could stop some of the wars in a way that has some kind of productive outcome, wars start, revolutions begin because people don't feel heard. Sometimes you need a revolution to upset the status quo. Otherwise, the tyranny that will have existed in the past would never have been overthrown. So as much as it's very unpleasant to see these things, awful, desperately awful for the ordinary people caught up in the power plays that go on, somehow or another the cycle of violence does at some point need to pause. So there could be an opportunity for that. I'm not saying it will happen, but there could be an opportunity. So that's my overall take on Pluto moving to Aquarius. It's not going to be a panacea. The sign of Aquarius can be very, very cool, very, very detached. I have loads of Aquarius, but my Aquarius is all in the 4th house, so very Cancerian, so very feeling. But Cancerian energy warms up, if you like, that detachment. But that detachment is there, so we are going to see some new developments in what's expected. We can see that for a lot of people, particularly those people with Pluto in Leo, Pluto in Virgo, big shifts for those older people in the way that life has been. For younger people, there's some real opportunities coming through. Now, I'm going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect. But just know that big institutions, whoever they are, they're going to be pushed back against still. More truths are going to be uncovered. People who've had a grip on power by using the mass media in a way that has, to a certain degree, just the repetitive message of a particular agenda will, in some kind of subtle way, affect all of us. It's impossible to ignore that fact. So we all need to be very strong about how we work with Pluto in Aquarius, but please stay with me as I give you a flavour of what you can expect, particularly at the end of this year and in 2025. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. Aries, for you, I don't feel there's any doubt about it. A new beginning is coming for you in 2025. You won't necessarily see it straight away on this event as Pluto moves into Aquarius, but what you are doing is putting all the building bricks in place. Once Saturn and Neptune move into your sign and Uranus into Gemini, you're going to get a feel for how it will start to take a much more obvious step forwards. Because at the moment, I feel there's a bit of a juggle. You've achieved some great things, particularly in terms of your work, career, standing, in terms of manifesting a more physical outcome for all your hard work. But Saturn and Neptune being in the 12th house, particularly Saturn since March 2023, have been shining quite a strong light into some murkier undergrowth underneath some of those achievements and successes. And maybe is what you did thrive in at the start of Pluto's journey through Capricorn just doesn't exist in the same way any longer. It could be an industry that's been replaced by the digital age in some way, and you've had to adapt. And of course, since then we've had COVID, that's created another set of complexities, and obviously the cost of living increases as well. We've got work from home, life's radically different. So you're building towards a new beginning. That new beginning, to be honest, will really start to show itself from the very first moments of 2026, because from the 11th of January, the true nodal axis in terms of the point of destiny moves into your 12th house. So I feel there's still some deeper stuff, some old stuff that you may still need to work through before you can really embrace the Aquarian age in quite the way that you would like. And that whole process is going to take about 2.5 years. It will be once you get Saturn and Neptune fully into your sign and the North Node inverts into Aquarius. That will be the real point of takeoff for you. So this particular phase that you're in now, I feel it is about bringing to a close some things that perhaps you've achieved. have you had a situation in your life when you really felt that you wanted to get a particular prize? For example, it could be a professional qualification, and just as you're inching towards getting it after all the slog, and then you actually seize it, you realise that you're not the person you were when you started that process. As much as you're very proud, rightly, of what you've achieved, you're wanting something different. It's part of the human experience. We're always evolving. And of course, Pluto is the planet of evolution. The other area that can change hugely for you beyond work, I think, is your friendships, your network. Some of your higher values and beliefs could be replaced. If you've been someone who, you're a cardinal sign like Capricorn, perhaps if you have been quite invested in success and your identity with that success towards work, perhaps with Pluto in Aquarius and Mars, your ruler, in Leo, you're going to want to be much more invested in your talents, the things that bring you some joy. Good for you if so. If you can also make some money from it as well, terrific. What about your love life? Well, interestingly enough, if you have been glued together with someone because you've shared a property or you've worked hard on getting all those very material benefits in place, that probably could start to not be enough. It's not to say the relationship will end, but it may need to evolve. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. Taurus, Pluto for you moves right to the top of your chart, the 10th house. You had a flavour of it for those 11 weeks in 23 and earlier this year. If you made a big success in 2023 and again earlier this year, it might not quite have gone exactly to plan. That doesn't mean to say you weren't successful. It just may have panned out a bit different to what you thought because of Uranus. Because Uranus has been such a radical energy for you. It is the disruptor planet in a way. We often see about in business that a new entrant will come into a market and see things in a completely different way, shake it all up, and that creates a huge impact on everyone. And Uranus is the planet that does that. So for you who has had a traditional preference for stability, a degree of regularity, you know, of all the fixed signs, you probably appreciate your routines and sticking with what you know the most, because the moon is exalted, it rises in Taurus, and the moon of course is about our emotional world and that sense of security. But because you've had Uranus in your sign and Pluto since the 2nd of September to the 19th of November in the 9th house, once again you're being pushed to change something, whether that would be your preference or not. And because Pluto moves to the top of your chart, it's asking you to take on more of a leadership role. The real complexity for you is that Mars position, because Mars being opposite Pluto means that whatever you do, whichever direction you take over these years through to 2043, what you do for you might not work for someone close to you. So if you go for that ambitious role, a partner might not like it, or it may require relocation, or you may decide to leave a relationship that's pretty good but doesn't quite give you everything you want. And remember, with Jupiter and Mercury in an opposition on this event, along with the Sun and Uranus, I feel that the potential for changes in relationships of all kind is actually very strong. Now, that could be the case that if you're single or seeking, you could connect to someone through your work or your professional interactions, or if you do things locally in terms of voluntary or in terms of your community, which is very 10th house, that also can be a great way to connect with new people. But having the sun in your 7th house is definitely going to make you think about relationships, but Uranus could make you think about escaping a relationship that is limiting you in some way. And because Mars is in your 4th house and the ascendant on this event is in Leo, I just feel that you could find yourself being pulled in a few different directions all at once. So it's all down to really you having a clear idea of what you feel would make you fulfilled. Because Pluto in the 10th house is seeking greater attention in a way, but people who have Pluto natally in the 10th house often end up in positions of public awareness, but can actually sometimes be quite reluctant about being there because of the more secretive energies of Pluto. So it just depends on the type of person you are. If you're someone who's very happy in the limelight, believe me, much more recognition is coming your way. If you're someone who's not so happy with that, you may find that your home life is conflicted a little bit by professional demands. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. Now, Gemini, there are going to be winners and there are going to be losers from Pluto's journey through Aquarius, but particularly in 25, you're going to be a winner. The reason for that is not just because Uranus moves into your sign for 4 months, which honestly would just be such a blessing. Uranus in the 12th house has been such an aggravant. If you think back to May to October 2018, I'm sure that wasn't a particularly easy time. Since Uranus moved full-time into Uranus, March 2019 till when it arrives in your sign on the 7th of July, it's aggravating your 12th house. The 12th house is the part of life that not everybody, but many people are a little bit reluctant to grapple with. It's our fears, our subconscious, maybe the people who don't really like us, maybe the people that we don't like us, but we worry about who they might be. And also, of course, the 12th house and Uranus can arouse a psychological impact on our physical health. So it can affect our nervous system quite badly if we have unprocessed emotions or worries or anxieties that we're not quite aware of. So all that rattling energy has not been easy. So Uranus arriving in your sign from the 7th of July is definitely wonderful. And guess what? Just as it does, Venus, the planet of desire, of relating, but also of money, is waiting. So what a glorious mix, because that link back to Pluto in your 9th house of adventure, excitement, anything to do with pioneering, being much more open to travel, for example, to experiencing different things and cultures. What an electric but wonderful combination. And both linking back to the players in your 11th house of friendships, your long-term plan, your network, your higher values of Neptune and Saturn in Aries. So that's a glorious set of influences for you. But what about how you fare from the complex set of energies that we have in the nativity when Pluto pitches back up in Aquarius for the movie number 3? Well, Mars for you is in the 3rd house. So that's an echo of your sign. So if you are someone who's got something to say, that's giving you superpower. You just need to pitch it in just the right way. But what about the fact that Jupiter's in your sign opposite your ruler? That again can create the potential for exuberance and enthusiasm, particularly around ideas, sharing information. If you are someone with that proverbial book inside of you, or you've always wanted to develop your own technological idea or app or website or blog, wonderful sparkling influences to help you forwards. What about the Sun opposite Uranus? That's trickier, because your nervous system, which has, I feel, for a lot of Geminis, been an issue, or maybe if that's not been so obvious, just a kind of not quite sureness about where things are heading, because it's almost like walking. When I take the dog for a walk at night, and occasionally I get a little bit of grit in my shoe, so I'm taking off my shoe and tapping it out, and you put the shoe back on, and sometimes that little piece of grit is still in there. That's kind of what Uranus in the 12th house can feel like. However much we lean into the issue and try to engage with perhaps what those concerns and anxieties and those parts of us that aren't quite processed, however much we try to do it, it's not so easy to fully release. So that opposition with the Sun is quite potentially challenging, because the Sun's in the part of your chart to do with reforms, to do with trying to improve and make your life more virtuous. And there may be part of you that will resist that because of Mars opposite Pluto. Who's going to tell you what to do? Certainly not you, Mr. Patrick Arundell. Quite right too. I'm only here as an in-between person to share the information that the astrology is given. How you work with it is obviously clearly down to you. But certainly your passion for ideas, your enthusiasm for travel, how you love to have lots of stimulating encounters, that's all turned up to max. But you do need to look after yourself. There's only so many minutes and hours in each day, Gemini, and what this chart is saying to you is that you will need to use your energy wisely over the years to come. Conserve when you can, rest, restore, recuperate, but also when you do work smart, which will come naturally for you. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. So Cancer, the big takeout for 25 is that Jupiter's arriving in your sign. And of course, when we have the summer solstice, the collective there provides a backdrop of energy that's very much promoting Cancerian energy for the following 13 weeks. What's not to like? Pluto for you is in house 8. That's about deep transformations, deep lessons can be. Maybe some of the things that occurred since 2008 were connected to relationships. Some very good and positive experiences, perhaps also some challenging ones. And I don't mean just in a personal context, could have been professionally. So Pluto moving into 8 is going to give you an opportunity to reflect and review on some of those things that occurred. But that energy of Jupiter coming into your sign and the summer solstice looks on the face of it wonderfully bright. The issue is that Saturn, particularly when it moves into Aries, clashes with Jupiter. The exact date is the June the 15th. We have the clash this year on the 24th of December. It's just in different signs, Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Gemini. But these are big cyclical clashes. It's not necessarily so good, but I feel Saturn and Neptune being right at the top of your chart point towards some kind of change around your work. And you want to work in an environment which is more enjoyable, particularly if you have had a line manager or a colleague who's really not been very easy to deal with. You're definitely not going to be orientating towards somewhere that's full of politics. And with Uranus nibbling away at your heels in the sign of Gemini for 4 months, over the summer of 2026, as much as you may start some new things that are different, novel and interesting with Jupiter's help, Uranus suggests that you're going to be redeploying old skills and experiences in some kind of fresh and new way. Now, the eclipse series next year for you, 25, very much around how you think and communicate between the signs of Virgo and Pisces, and with the North Node, the point of destiny, in your 9th house. Don't be surprised if you do travel next year, but the travel in terms of Pluto is going to be deeply psychological. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. So Leo, Pluto moving into Aquarius for the 3rd time, really exciting for all sorts of relationships. There's been such an emphasis over the last 16 years on the more practical part of your situation. In a way, I feel that you've had to give up something in order to support others. So having Mars in your sign as this process begins, aligned with the ascendant, is certainly going to give you an initial boost when it comes to visualizing and perhaps then bringing into reality what you want in terms of your perfect outcome for your connection to others. But there is a caveat here, because getting that tip point balance between what you want and what other people will want from you, and those points of collaboration and consensus, could be a little bit of a challenge. However, having Saturn and Neptune move into your 9th house, even if it's not full time next year, and Uranus to house 11, is all terrific stuff. So if you're looking for a new start around a romantic relationship, for example, there's a great opportunity for you in the years to come. But equally, if you're in a relationship that's not working very well, I think Mars opposite Pluto does suggest that you may have to deal with this, even if you're someone who has a preference to avoid outright confrontation, perhaps if you've got inner planets in Cancer, for example. So how you move forwards this year is going to be through informing yourself, gaining a lot of extra knowledge. If you travel, it could be exciting. It doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be without some demands. You can travel through your mind, for example, but that may require further education, professionally or academically. But with Neptune in the 9th house, you could also find yourself tripping the light fantastic and go into a destination that's truly exotic and different. But that 4-month journey of Uranus and then picking up with Mars, as Mars meets with Uranus and Pluto on the 7th of August, when the sun is in your sign, that could be a very influential time for your social situation, interactions, and potentially to meet new people. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. It's an intriguing one for you, Virgo, because Pluto going into 6 again is very evocative in terms of the things that you have a great skill set around. Refinements, attention to detail, how you provide support and assistance to others and get a lot from that. You know, if you work in a service-based industry, Virgos are often very skilled at that kind of role. But of course, the 6th house can be about health, mainly more about how we take responsibility for the smaller details of whatever we do. So some people could be very fit, for example, do a lot of running or swimming, but there may still be some fundamentals in their diet that they could correct. So slightly better nutrition, cooking stuff from scratch, not taking those shortcuts that we're all drawn to at times when we're busy and tired. So you're being asked to intensify your gaze on an area of life that you have a natural aptitude for. What's that going to be like? Well, you're soon going to find out. But what will 25 be like? Because the 6th house can be about the processes involved in our work. The 10th house, where Uranus is how we actually connect to the wider world. Uranus can create disturbances, and it can create change, and because Saturn and Neptune go into house 8, that's very deep psychological change that's possible. So I think a big year is ahead for you in terms of amending some of what's in place already. Now, if you're not particularly satisfied in your present role or with your health, and there are some changes that you're proactively engaging with, what an opportunity this year ahead can be. If you're someone who's rather resistant, that's when Pluto starts to cause issues, because sometimes Pluto draws us to outcomes that we're not always ready for, and then because we resist, that's when it creates real problems. So if you have opportunities to lead the change rather than wait, and then the change being enforced upon you, and obviously because the world is changing so quickly, particularly around work, that could be an area like upskilling, learning different approaches, being very flexible in your approach. All of those things can be very much to your advantage. But the eclipses that are going to occur in 25, and also the fact the North Node enters your 7th house, also suggests getting a juggle between what you want and what other people expect of you. And Saturn is going to be applying to those eclipses in quite a potent way in 2025. So any weak links around relationships are likely to be revealed, but of course that also creates opportunities too. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. So Libra, we've said it many times, what a challenge Pluto in the 4th house was for you in its journey through Capricorn, which was an epic time. So moving back into house 5, but this time supported brilliantly by Neptune, especially in your 7th house of relating. The 5th house is where you can showcase your talents, your creativity, your flair, your personality power. And then Uranus coming along in July to arc back to both Saturn, Neptune and Pluto. And then Mars moving into your sign on the 7th of August. Do you know, there's a lot to savour there. Will it be absolutely perfect for every Libra? Of course not, because we've all got our own life stories. We've got our own individual processes. But in a general sense, there is a big shift away from the introspection, the challenges perhaps, the betrayals around emotions, into a chance to really step forwards into the sunlight, because the 5th house where Pluto is going is about that sunlight. It's a very Leonian position, and because Mars is in the picture in your 11th house, I just feel there's going to be a lot more interaction for you next year with all sorts of different types of people. It can be very exciting. There will be demands. Saturn in the 7th house could bring an existing weak relationship of any kind under the astral microscope, and in most extreme circumstances to an end. But I feel that what it will help you to do, Saturn, is set your boundaries. Keep pushing forwards with being able to have the confidence to say no, to not always have to attune to what other people want from you. Now, your sign is also about fairness. You may not have felt there was much fairness around your home, family and emotional life since 2008, and you could well be right. So it's a chance now to create the environment which helps you to bring the people around you who can actually support you to create what's really essential for you. That's happiness, that's the potential for joy. It's all there for you to go for in 2025. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast and also Chinese forecast, and you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free, and in my special package of 30% off you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. So Scorpio, for you, Mars and Pluto are in opposition as Pluto returns to Aquarius, your two rulers, and Mars is in a part of your chart which wants you to raise your profile, be more professionally active. Pluto's in your fourth house where there's going to be a continual change and evolution around your feelings and emotions over the years to come. So how do you work those two energies? And of course, with the Sun in your sign opposed by Uranus, there could be some sudden changes, perhaps changes you want around your relationship sector, but maybe the changes could be around professional relationships or in the family as much as a romantic context. And Neptune does forge that beautiful link to the Sun at the start of this process. And also the Sun itself in your sign is in a nice angle to Pluto. So if you are wanting to use your flair and imagination, for example, to renovate a property, remember Pluto can be about the phoenix. So the fourth house can be about where we live. The 10th house can be the structure of our business situation, but certainly that link to the Sun, very good. The link from the Sun in your sign back to the ascendant and Mars, also pretty good. It's a bit broader, of course, about 5 degrees, but it's there for you. So there are opportunities. It's just that Saturn and Neptune in your 6th house suggest that there may be some new disciplines and processes and approaches that you may need to have to embrace. What about Uranus in house 8? Well, if you have gone through a bit of an up and down time around close relationships since those first 5 months in 2018, it's an opportunity to have some kind of release, certainly an outcome. Interesting how that plays out, but remember Uranus is about innovation and the 8th house is about business and long-term finance, another window of opportunity. So there's a bit of a juggle there between home and work, but there is a way that you can step forwards into all of this. And remember, because you are a water sign, intrinsically Pluto being in the 4th house is for you like your Cancer location. It's your sleepy part of your chart where you can just get much deeper into what you truly need. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast and also Chinese forecast, and you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free, and in my special package of 30% off you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. Sagittarius, Pluto moving back to the 3rd house is going to see things speed up brilliantly. Also Saturn and Neptune, house 5 where you can really showcase your individuality. Saturn particularly in Pisces has been such a challenge, I feel, and Neptune's been bringing a kind of watery dimension to your home and emotional world since 2012. That's not been easy. And then having Uranus go into your 7th house at a time when Venus is there, some exciting action around your love life entirely possible. in July. Then in August, as Mars goes into your sector of friendship, and that's connecting back to Uranus and also Pluto. I feel there's lots about this year for you to look forward to. Pluto moving through your second house has been an existential crisis in some ways of identity. You've been trying to nail down exactly what you're working towards in terms of who you are and what your role is and how you validate yourself. The second house isn't just about money, and the third house is going to be much more interactive, and you're great when you're discussing and sharing things, and having Mercury and Jupiter in an opposition as this event begins, that brings an uplift as well. You just need to use that energy in the right kind of way. In other words, Jupiter and Mercury in opposition can see us tempted to put a bit of extra gloss on situations, but in terms of engaging your mind in sharing that natural enthusiasm of yours, absolutely fantastic for you. So I think this year can be an exciting year, a year of real momentum, but it will be at the start of 26 when you really start to feel the uplift in a fuller way, particularly when Uranus moves back into the sign of Gemini from April 2026, and later on in the year the North Node inverts back into Aquarius. That's when you're really going to see a massive transition in your circumstances. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. Capricorn, depending on your experience over the years since 2008, you'll be absolutely sick to death of Pluto, or recognizing that it has brought some very profound changes to your life which are not to be ignored. But of course it does depend on what other players you have and how they've been influencing the situation. For example, you might have planets in Libra and that might have been tricky. You might have something in Aquarius, that could have been tricky. But if you have the Sun or the Ascendant in Capricorn, particularly late on, so the last couple of years has been especially intense, you may be looking for some kind of release. But just remember what you've been changing and evolving with, because moving into Aquarius, you're going to see what you've been developing, the foundational stones. Brilliant. However, Saturn going into House 4 does suggest that if there is something around your home or family life which isn't quite working, that may be the area that is going to show up. Also, Uranus moving from the creative 5th house to the practical 6th through the summer months suggests that if you are wanting to earn money in a different way, it could be work from home will appeal to you, or it could be something more novel. But certainly getting more value for your individual talents and ideas is going to be part of this year's outcomes. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. For you as Pluto alights in your sign for stage 3. Now, I'm just 30 minutes into Aquarius, so Pluto's been going backwards and forwards on my Sun. And wherever you've got planets, but if you have got them at the start of Aquarius, or your ascendant is overlapping that area, then clearly the house that's being activated is the key thing. So if, for example, your house is the fourth house, for example. This could be quite an emotional process, but at the same time you can still benefit from the change agenda that Pluto brings. Just remember with Pluto, particularly as you're a fixed sign, if we resist, it gets more tricky. If we go with it, we can embrace it. Having Mars in your opposite sign, though, is intriguing. Is someone going to come into your situation that really captures your imagination? Your everyday conversations certainly come under the astral microscope from the end of March. And then with Uranus in house 5 through the summer months, what a dazzling time that can be. And there's lots of excitement. It's just that the eclipse series and the nodal axis in 2025 could still see you trying to get the formula just so in terms of your income and expenditure. But I feel that the transitions and changes that are going on are all going in very much the right direction for you. And in 2026, when the North Node enters your sign, that's when you're really going to be seeing how this early entry back into Pluto is starting to play out for you. And I think it can be very exciting. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more. So Pisces, the arrival of Pluto in the 12th house can have some complexities, particularly if you're someone who has been a little bit resistant to looking at your past, working through issues that may have been painful or difficult, perhaps understanding the psychological dimension. You've had some resistance around you over the last couple of years with Saturn eroding your physical vitality, but you've also probably simplified your life and have been working on the things that are critically important to you. With Saturn moving into house 2 from the 23rd of May, you certainly have an opportunity to get a feel for what that's meant. But the North Node entering your sign on the 11th of January, the true node, the point of destiny, is pushing you forwards, taking that Saturnian energy which may have stripped down the things that weren't really essential. Now you can build things up with what is truly essential. Uranus moving, however, into Gemini could suggest some changes about where you live or who you live with or how. And the energy of Mars, which comes in August, forging that trine, that ground air trine. If you are wanting to transact property sale or rental, that can be a key period for you. And of course the eclipses this year is a delicate balance between attack and defense. You know, what you want is the first house, the Piscean energy. What other people want from you is the 7th house, the Virgo energy. So that's part of the equation too. And because Pluto's in the 12th house, that's going to tease out the shadows, anyone who's not really in your corner, who's not really got your best interests at heart, and any residual stuff from your past or fears or hang-ups. Great chance to really tackle these. If you try to ignore it, that's where Pluto is an issue. So just be aware around relationships. You are going to find out by the end of 25 who is in your corner and who isn't. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this special Pluto in Aquarius deep dive and 2025 forecast. Also, if you'd like to watch your individual forecast for 2025, please click on the link beneath this video. I've now produced the year 2025 Zodiac forecast, love forecast, and also Chinese forecast. And you can get them free if you order your year 2025 personal forecast. I'll also give you the rest of this year free. And in my special package of 30% off, you can get your life roadmap report. This will help you to understand the patterns that have played out in your life so far and give you a much more intimate understanding of how to work with them. Each chart totally unique to the person it's produced for. Please see the link below for more.